Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and we've had some big news over the weekend and the past week with iOS 26 being the new name of iOS 19, along with what could be a small WWDC, and we'll also talk about where iOS 18.5.1 is. This is your weekly Apple News update for the week of June 2nd, 2025. Now, Apple posted a new WWDC25 update with the new tagline called Sleek Peek. This hints at the new design with the sort of gloss or glass look to it, and there's also a new animation to go along with this. Apple posted this on their developer website. You can see it here, where it sort of morphs from a different glass view of maybe the Apple logo to the Swift logo to the rainbow. And so you can see what that looks like. And if we have any of those animations, which they hinted at last year with the Siri animation, it's hopefully going to be something along those lines and look completely different and be all new as far as the interactions. And this is what we're expecting at this point. Apple also posted the WWDC 2025 live stream on YouTube. It's ready to go for June 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and this will adjust the time based on where you're located. If you can't watch it on apple.com, you can watch it on YouTube, so be sure to check it out if you haven't already, if you want to know what the times are for you. Now, WWDC 2025 is just a week away at this point, and according to Mark Gurman this week, it will be a smaller scale. While we do still expect a redesign of iOS as well as a range of their operating systems, there's no other announcements such as Apple Intelligence or hardware expected like Vision Pro. So while I would expect an iOS redesign to be major news and be a major WWDC, other than that, we're not expecting other announcements. Now, that's something I've been looking forward to for years, so to me, that would be a pretty big update, but either way, we don't expect anything else. Apple's also supposedly taking a year off to work on Apple Intelligence, such as Siri utilizing large language models. This will put them a couple years behind what we have with things such as Google Gemini and ChatGPT. However, I think iOS has long needed a redesign to make it feel fresh and new, and if Apple were to focus only on Apple Intelligence and bring the features they promised last year, would feel like too little too late. So maybe they want to redesign first, then they'll share AI. Since they're already allowing integration of ChatGPT, maybe we'll get integration of Gemini and more this year. But let me know what you think of that in the comments below. Apple this week shared an App Store transparency report that gave updates on everything from app submission reviews to those rejected as well. You can see it here on their PDF, so we have a lot of different things if we zoom in. App submissions rejections by App Store review guidelines section, apps removed from the App Store, and apps approved as well. So you'll see all of the different things. They had over 7 million, almost 8 million submissions reviewed. So if you want to see all of these details, I'll link them in the description below. Now, Meta last week finally updated WhatsApp to allow it for update on the iPad. You could use it before in its iPhone form, but now it's made specifically for iPad. So you can see it here where it works on this specifically and is more designed for the iPad layout. We also should be getting Instagram within the next year. Supposedly Apple's working on this, and we could see it by the end of the year at this point. Now, Apple also updated one of their apps this week, along with a couple others such as Logic Pro, but they updated the Invites app with the ability to add a link tile to your guests, to a gift registry, potluck list, trip planner, and more right within the event. So if you create an event, you can do that and then add a link directly to it. So you can see share the album, and now you can add a link. So if you want to do that, it's now available, and I'm curious how many of you actually use this app. I haven't used it since it released, but I'm sure many people like it. Now, Apple this week also is bringing Tap to Pay to 8 more countries. They announced this in a post online, and you'll see it says they're bringing it to iPhone in Belgium, Croatia, Cyprus, Denmark, Greece, Iceland, Luxembourg, and Malta. So this will allow you to use Tap to Pay on iPhone from iPhone to iPhone if you want to pay for different transactions. Apple is also opening its third store in India. It's at Bengaluru's Phoenix Mall of Asia. Hopefully I said that properly, but it looks like it's coming soon. So there's more and more stores opening up in India, showing Apple's commitment to India as well. They're building more iPhones there as well this year. And this year we'll see the first major movie to be shot on iPhone releasing in a month called 28 Days Later. IGN has additional details on it, but you can see them using an iPhone here, and they use different iPhone rigs all throughout the set to film the entire movie. movie. Apparently, Apple helped them working on this to get the most out of their iPhones as well. And so I'm not really into horror movies, but this will be the first movie shot completely on iPhone. So I'm curious to see what that actually looks like, how well it turns out, and maybe it's time for me to switch to shooting on iPhone cameras. Instead of larger, more expensive cameras, this seems to get the job done and make life a lot easier. Now, as far as weekly Apple deals this week, well, M3 iPad Air is up to $100 off on Amazon by Apple. Also, the M4 MacBook Air is down a couple $100 as well. And of course, AirPods are on perpetual discount. I'll link them all in the description below if you want to check them out. And let me know if you think the weekly deals are helpful, if I should continue posting them every week with the regular news update. Now, many of you have been asking me, where is iOS 18.5.1 or iOS 18.6 Beta 1? Well, last year we did get an iOS 17.5.1, but they didn't push iOS 17.6 Beta 1 until after WWDC. Either way, if they don't push anything this week at all, this would be the first time in many years that they haven't pushed out an update before WWDC within a few weeks. And you'll see on June 2nd today, well, we have 1 week until WWDC. This week, we could see iOS 18.5.1. However, there's been no rumors of them anywhere, no sort of mention by any websites of it. However, it has been a few weeks since Apple stopped signing iOS 18.4.1. So it'd be unusual if they don't push something out. But again, we're not seeing any hints of this, and the same is true for iOS 18.6 Beta 1. At this point, maybe we'll see it sometime next week or the following week. However, I do expect iOS 26 Beta 1 to release after the keynote on June 9th. Typically by around 4 to 5 p.m., they'll release it to developers, and then we'll have the public beta usually a few weeks later at the end of June or early July. Now, of course, we'll have betas throughout the summer, and then a public release typically in September. Apple could be changing things up this year, maybe changing the way they're releasing things, but either way, we do expect something on June 9th, so be sure to check back for that. As far as future rumors and updates and what to expect, well, Apple is apparently planning to push AI into the Shortcuts app. They're going to heavily integrate this and allow people to create actions utilizing Apple Intelligence AI models. This may not launch until 2026, though, according to Mark Gurman. So it looks like they're going to push Apple Intelligence into more. It makes sense if it could sort of automate things a little bit better and utilize shortcuts for that. Now, macOS 26 now has a name. We hear about this every year, and typically Apple gives it a name after California, but it looks like this year's update will be called macOS Tahoe. This would be based off of Lake Tahoe and symbolize a giant change with the overall OSs that Apple provides. So we could see macOS 26, Lake Tahoe or Tahoe, and we'll see that in just a week or so. Now, we've already seen the iPhone 17 models. However, this year we may get a smaller dynamic island. Apple's been working on reducing the overall sensor size, and according to the latest rumors, we could see one that occupies less space. Maybe that's why we have the larger bumps on the back, so they could push it back a little bit more, making the dynamic island smaller. But either way, it looks like we could have that. There's also some disappointing news for the base iPhone 17. This looks much like this current year's iPhone 16, and it's said to have the 8 gigs of RAM that the current model already does, along with the A18 chipset. It looks like 12 gigs of RAM will only be on the Pro and Pro Max, and we also could have the A19 in the Air model as well. So based on what we know so far this year, it looks like maybe we won't have all of the major phones upgraded, and instead they'll sort of leave the iPhone 17 as more of a base model, maybe even with a 60 Hz display still. Now, iPhone 18 or later may be getting a 200 megapixel camera. This would go along with what they have before. There's been some rumors that they're going to switch to Samsung sensors, but either way, they could utilize something similar to the S25 Ultra with a 200 megapixel sensor, allowing for better zoom. However, they're typically worse in low light, so they have larger pixels to accommodate 200 megapixel and typically suffer in that way. But that's where the other lenses come in, so we could see Apple do something similar. Apple is also expected to continue to have all new phone designs from now until 2027. So we could see a redesign, not just of the iPhone 17 with its big camera bar on the back or camera tray, but we could also see it change through 2027 with a new redesign, and then the iPhone 20 or the 20th anniversary edition could be completely different and all glass. So some major changes are expected at least for the next couple of years. Now, Apple is also not expected to release any major hardware at WWDC, but they still have yet to update the Mac Pro with the M3 Ultra, and we haven't seen the updates of the new Studio Display or Pro Display XDR. We really could use some ProMotion that we have on the iPhone to smooth some things out. However, you don't need that to edit video, but either way, with the displays being that expensive, I would hope that they'll update them soon. Apple is also working on bringing solid-state buttons back. We've heard about this in the past where they're working on it, where you'll just push it and it will feel as though it's real, similar to the Magic Trackpad, and we could see this in future iPhones. We sort of have that already with the camera control button, but maybe we'll see that in future iPhones and on all of their devices as they're said to be working on this according to Instant Digital. And so that's everything so far this week. Of course, WWDC is going to be the major news next week, and of course I'll share all the information as soon as we know it. Let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.